And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Ron Guenther from the class of 1963. Many of you are familiar with Mr. Guenther. He played football at York and I believe ran track also for Mr. Newton. He was the MVP of the 1966 University of Illinois football team, but what I found, he was first team all-academic in the Big Ten. He served as the athletic director at the University of Illinois for 19 years, where he increased the endowments to $40 million. Also read that he, you can see in the program, oversaw the renovation of a enormous stadium that I'm just going to say cost more than this entire high school cost to build. And he's a former school teacher and coach at both the high school and college level. He is currently a consultant to the commissioner of the Big Ten. Tomorrow, one of the things he'll be doing with our students is meeting with students, juniors and seniors, who are interested in going to the University of Illinois, which we're very pleased about. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Ron Guenther.
Good evening. You know, Ken, we have a lot in common. I was looking at that. First of all, I too wanted dates while I was in high school. We had an interesting start. Anyway, all the way up here, my good wife said, "Don't forget to remind everyone that I'm with you." So, Megan, would you please stand up? Stand up. I mean, I'd also like to thank Principal Smith and the committee for the honor. Obviously, it's when you start to listen to all this, you really start to become humbled when you start to think about the accomplishments of these folks. Dr. Wayne Mahood is the professor that nominated me, and I can tell you he wrote such a phenomenal letter. I got done reading, I thought it was about somebody else, quite honestly. I want to certainly wish him well. For health purposes, he couldn't make it this evening. I had an unbelievable experience just 6 weeks ago. We had our 50th reunion. And believe it or not, this is the first time I've actually been back to York. 46 years ago, Jim Dawson, who's been a lifelong friend, Jim is a graduate of York as well. Our senior year, we were asked to come back. If you can imagine, two kids from the same high school, from Elmhurst, captain of the football team and basketball team, we came back to speak at the spring awards banquet. So Jim, when he was talking to me about all of the experience we had, all the great friends we had, he said, Ron, there's not a whole lot that gets better as you get older. There are two things, though. He said, one, if we live long enough, we might shoot our age in golf. I've got ways to go yet. And the second thing is you might get an award. He said, because there's fewer people around to remember all your mistakes. And quite honestly, I qualify in both. We were asked to comment on the experiences of York. And I get, this happened over the summer. And you start thinking back, but it would be a mistake for me not to remember my parents. They're both deceased. But we grew up on Addison, North Side. Probably wouldn't call us poor. The greatest thing about it, we didn't know it. But my dad actually immigrated here from Germany, very limited education. And they were very, very hardworking people. Put three of us through. We all got our college degrees as well. Had a lot of support from them. There was no question that we had clean clothes on our backs. We had plenty of food. Went to church, and in our day, and we've got some guys from my group right here tonight. It's funny, in our house, the teachers and coaches were always right. And if I took away two things from those people, it was to work hard and definitely do things the right way. With that said, the real change for me was York. We didn't have a lot of competitive sports in the junior highs at that time. And quite honestly, like most freshmen, I got over here, I was pretty scared. It was a big high school. And what I found were the teachers and coaches immediately took an interest in me. And within the first 2 weeks, I went out for football. And some of the members of that team are out there tonight. There was an injury on the sophomore team, and somehow I was pulled up. And I would just say that it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I met a guy by the name of Don Lane. And unfortunately, sadly, Don passed away. I was hoping that he and his family could make it here tonight. But Don had an unbelievable impact on me. He was a terrific coach, but even a greater person. He was the guy that invested. He knew when I did get a date who it was. He knew what I was doing in school. He tracked everything I did, and it was really Don that expanded my thinking. I mean, I started to think, well, maybe I wanted to do something other than where I was. I was actually in industrial arts. And Don was the one that walked me down after my sophomore year to Ted Lights, who was a guidance counselor. Some of you may remember Ted. And they changed me from my industrial arts curricula over into college prep. And you can imagine how intimidating and scared I was, because I was pretty happy making furniture over, I think, the old industrial arts place. I was making bowls and furniture, and my teammates were worried that, someday that I'd still be making bowls and furniture. And what happened after that was incredible, because I all of a sudden had to start taking courses with freshmen and sophomore, but I had to actually launch and compete academically in areas I didn't think I could. So, I can't name everybody, but I would just tell you this, that Coach Wackenheim was my wrestling coach, and Coach Mueller, who some of you may, Dean of Boys, they were unbelievable. They set up meetings with Mrs. Bidoff. You remember Mrs. Bidoff? She actually met me in the morning because we practiced at night. She spent extra time with geometry, algebra, which I still don't understand half of that stuff. Fru Brown, who was our sophomore football coach, I had to take chemistry. He launched into sometimes into physics, which was great. Mr. Leader, I had for English and rhetoric, and they were so concerned that the ACT was the first year. 1963, if you can imagine, to get a scholarship was the first year that they had the test scores. So they worked extra time with me. And then there was Mr. Keene, my woodshop teacher, who actually took time in my junior year summer. If you can imagine a teacher telling me that we're going to take some road trips, and he took me to some colleges, which, my parents had never been on a college campus. So Don and that group got me that far. And the other guy was just named. And he promised me he'd be here tonight, Principal Smith, but he bailed on me. That's Joe Newton. Joe, this was a little different. As gifted as I was in one sport, track, I was told to go out for track, quite honestly. Said that, to get ready for football, you need to be involved in track. So I did. And it was more than the training of track. What happened to me with Joe was the toughness and the discipline. I can still remember my freshman year, my sophomore, my junior year. Joe, he's the one that made the initial call to Illinois as well. But he was a terrific, terrific coach. I'm hoping that I'll see him in the morning. Lastly, I'd like to thank everybody for the support that they've given me. Obviously, the York experience really, if I took two things away from York, was one, it expanded my thinking that I could do the academic work. And the second piece is I learned how to compete. And when I looked at the guys that had come out before and went to institutions like Illinois, I saw a lot of people fold that had more ability. But I'll always be indebted to York High School. I'd also tell you I would not change a thing. My experience at York was fantastic. Thank you very much.